We are celebrating the 10-year anniversary of Omega, which was launched in June of 2008. Omega is our student information system, which houses all of our student records. In addition, it does many more things that have been added over the years. Our original system was Alpha, which was designed by Robert Mays. I took that original design and created Omega in 2008. And over the years, we've had a lot of individuals contribute to Omega to make it bigger and better in all the things that it does. So today, we're going to hear from some of those individuals over the years that have worked with Omega, and they'll tell us their stories and what is it doing today. So Robert, we are celebrating 10 years from the date that we launched Omega, and I know you are the Alpha Master.
Oh my.
And you created Alpha, which was the predecessor to Omega, which began it all. So I'd love to hear the history of Alpha and how we got to Omega.
So when the university started, we had to have a system to keep student records. We didn't have that. So somehow we found a program called Alpha 4. And we wrote a basic database in it that was very flat, that held the student records and their courses and information. And it was I think it was a one-user system. It was so limited, but we were small, and that was okay. As we grew, we knew we needed to do something better than that, and we needed to have a relational database. And we in Alpha 4, that company Alpha did an Alpha 5, which was way better. I thought it was amazing. So we hired a programmer, a contractor, to build a system in it that would actually have his student record, his course records, his grade records, and be able to run all kinds of reports and things that we needed. That took a while, but was a fun process, and it was really neat. I learned a lot. So then once that was built up and running, we thought we really had something, and we really were way ahead. Just like CSU today, nothing off the shelf would really work, and it wouldn't work then. We knew our systems had to be built in-house to help run the school like it needed to be ran, and they could be adapted and customized. So over time, the school grew, and we reached this point where Alpha wasn't doing so well anymore. It would crash all the time. And it got to where it was several times a day, and we'd have to get everybody out. That took a while. That was very problematic. And not only that, sometimes it would crash even worse and require like extensive surgery. And a lot of times I'd be gone when that would happen, which was not good. So I still remember the days of where we began to do the search for you. And we knew, okay, we're gonna have a better system, but even before that, we had to build other systems to even get us by and where we were. So when we got you, unfortunately, you weren't able just to focus on Omega and building the successor to Alpha, but all kinds of other stuff, right?
Yeah, I recall when I first came on board, we built the document management system. We built some other subsystems for grade posting and the credit card manager system.
Yeah.
We worked on the website. We had portals. I think we even launched a bookstore for students to order their books from the website. And there was lots of things. We were building it as we were going. And I know at some point in time we talked and decided to go ahead and build the new system, which took a few years to build, and everybody picks at me about 2 weeks. I always say I can do that in 2 weeks, but I think we can say today that we were very successful. You and I sat down, we talked about the vision we had for it and all the possibilities of having it as a central hub, for the website, because the website was separate back then, and everything was kind of emailed in and printed, and people were doing things manually. So over each year we've gotten better and better and added new features to it. And I'll say one of the biggest compliments that I've had is with the Board of Trustees. Several board members have complimented on they work at other universities. They have systems that are similar to ours. They really like ours because it's so customized to what we do, and it goes far beyond what a standard system would do for another school.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And we've been told we could start another company that sold Omega, and we would rival any company out there.
And I'd like to say, as we kind of wrap this up, is that Omega is here today from the contributions of everyone at the university. The software developers have written the code for it, but the individuals and all the departments who have had great ideas and brought new features and functionality to Omega to improve their departments has really made CSU much better. Today, as we celebrate Omega, it is a celebration for everyone at the university. As we've grown and prospered with the technology and the innovation which continues to drive us forward.
But and then to add to that, we're a university that really, we appreciate what our IT department can do here. We value it where a lot of companies may not. And the fact that we can go to someone and say, hey, here's how we do something. Can you do this with this and automate it and be able to write code that does it and make it better? Most people don't have that ability to go do that. And I think every leader here and every staff member appreciates we have that. So shout out to an incredible IT team that can write the code, that can support it, that can do servers, that can run it and run it well, and support all of us when we have questions and issues with it. It's an amazing group of people and a great resource that makes all of our jobs, everyone's here, a lot better.
Well, thank you for today, Robert, and thank you to everyone out there. And we are looking for the next 10 years of Omega, and I know it has a bright future along with CSU.
Yep.
So, Tommy, you've been with the school for a long time.
Long time.
And, you know, we're celebrating Omega launching in 2008, but I know you were working with our technology before then and after that point. So, can you tell us a little about your experience with Omega and Alpha?
Well, first with Alpha, you know, it started in, 94, 95. And Robert hired a guy from some other state to put it together and sent it down to us. This is when we were over in Pensacola, I believe, in our office over there. It was a crazy system. I think I had like 6 different templates for just a transcript. Yeah, I can't believe I was here 17 years before we got Omega. And now it's been 10 years with Omega, so it's been a great run. You know, just working out everything with you, creating everything, credit card manager, document manager. Those 2 programs helped immensely.
Thank you. And I remember that when we were the credit card manager, we'd have to settle that at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And we were using IC Verify at the time. Right. It was a computer modem would dial up and submit a file, and it wouldn't always be accepted, and you and I would sit there and try to fix that before the end of the day so we could reconcile. But we eventually switched over to another system which was used the internet to submit the files, but and now today, the credit card manager is fully integrated with Omega, does payments, and I know you used to do the payments manually each month, now everything is just kind of operates by itself, which is
totally streamlined. Can't thank you enough for creating it, Ken. It only took them 2 weeks, by the way. Anyway.
That's the joke.
But yeah, Omega has been a lifesaver. When it was just me being registrar, I would do graduation audits through Alpha 5. And it was painful, very painful to figure out all their transcript hours. Were they here? Did I have all the documents over here? And then I had to go search for their tuition payments. So now with Omega, it's all in one spot, you know. So it's very easy, very manageable, and I love it.
Thank you, Tommy. Thank you for sharing that today.
You're welcome. Congratulations.
Thanks.
All right.
So Jamie, tell us about your experience working with Omega for the last 10 years.
When I was hired, Omega had just gone live. I spent a lot of time just trying to learn Omega that first year as we added new features and then trying to help users, you know, train on it.
So you've been with Omega pretty much almost the whole time it's been live, so to speak.
Absolutely.
You were talking to me and you mentioned so these are other schools and their systems.
I think a lot of people don't realize how advanced Omega is in comparison to other institutions. I was at an education technology conference last year, and a software vendor did a demo of a system that would automatically show students what they should enroll in next. And it wowed the audience. And I just had to chuckle to myself a little bit because that was a prototype of something that you couldn't even buy yet. And we had that functionality in Omega for years. And what they showed was way less advanced than what we had.
Yeah, and I think Omega is one of our our advantages at CSU. Technology and efficiency in operations is one of our points that really puts us ahead of our competition out there. I understand, well, I know there are some Easter eggs in there because I put a few in myself, and I know you put a few in.
Absolutely.
Do you want to give some hints on where some of those might be?
I'd say you should be looking for, little hint notifications popping up of various Easter eggs and where they might be inside of Omega. Should be fun.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mike, so you've been with us since 2008, when Omega launched shortly after that. I'd like to know, what you've done with Omega, and just tell us a little bit about your experience with it.
I came on actually in April '09, so it was like after we had moved to the new building and everything.
Okay.
And Jamie was here, and Jonathan, and some of the other guys, and Doug and Bill was here shortly thereafter. So we had a small team. We were all kind of crammed together in a room together. Did a lot of work. Got up like a version of the student portal, kind of using the Omega data at that time. Of course, the Live Degree audit, which allowed you to automatically do application and credit and stuff like that. I was involved in that, and projects to kind of make it easier for a bigger team to work on, because we started hiring more people too. So just basically setting some coding standards.
So where it was back then to where it is today, can you compare the two?
There's a lot more code.
I would say most people, when you think of Omega, you think of the desktop application that you're running, but really Omega is a lot more than that. It includes our student portal and our prospect portal and our faculty portal. All those systems were developed in-house, and they all use the same database.
Right, and there's a number of services and stuff too that run in the background and automate certain things as well. Like there's probably 24 of those.
I know when I was writing code that there were a few comments that you can put in the code to describe what you're doing, and I think there's some funny ones in there too. Is that true?
Well, yes. There was, I had to work on one of the screens. I think it was the evaluation screen, and it was just atrocious. And so like I actually left a comment and said, abandon all hope, ye who enter here. So.
Developers have a great sense of humor, and a lot of times we have to keep it, kind of funny. So we'll put comments in there for the people that come behind us. And I'm sure, have you seen are my initials still in the code?
Oh yeah, all throughout a lot of the database code stuff, and even some in Omega. There's even parts in there that says, if you're Ken Styron, allow you to do certain things. There's hard-coded things in there for certain people, so yeah.
That's awesome. All right, well, thank you, Mike, for today, and we appreciate your hard work and your dedication to making Omega bigger and better, and in return, making CSU bigger and better.
Well, thank you, Ken, and thank you for setting the base for us all to build upon. It was, we couldn't have done any of that work without the work you did early on, so
thank you. Vanessa, so we're celebrating 10 years since we launched Omega, and you were here when we launched it, and I'd like to know, how has Omega affected business affairs, and your experience over the years using it, and how it's changed your department?
Yes, well, way less paperwork than we used to have, for sure. So, and the process is so much faster. We can get students enrolled way quicker than we used to.
Now, I understand we originally used to get those enrollments via like a paper, right? You can tell us a little bit about that, how that worked?
Yeah, well, actually, the way that they did come in, every morning we printed every enrollment that came in. Anything that we did, we actually wrote it on the enrollment, and then we scanned that into the document. And then we had to have someone actually file all of those. So we had a room, that were all the file cabinets were in it. And so we would spend days just filing folders.
You use the Credit Card Manager, right?
Yes.
Which is now really part of Omega, but in those early days, how's that changed?
Well, actually, we stood in Tommy's office, and there was a machine in there that we stood there and ran each credit card and pulled a ticket off and put it in the folder.
I remember that, yes. Well, I wanted to thank you for today, and for sharing your story on how CSU has evolved over the years, and how it's affected your department. So thank you.
You're welcome.
So Scott, we are celebrating 10 years of Omega. It was in 2008, June 27, 2008, that we launched Omega. Shortly after that, you joined us with CSU, and I recall the interview process where you and I talked, and I convinced you to come to CSU, and I promised we'd always have something to do.
You're a man of your word.
Yes. You were very instrumental in getting Omega where it is today. I'd like for you to talk about, you know, what you've done with it and how you've worked with everyone to build it into where it is now.
The one thing I think I've done more than anything is just been more of a facilitator. You had a vision and a direction for Omega. 5 years ago, we were doing our strategic planning, and we identified that one of our strategic advantages over the rest of our competition was Omega and the ability that it gave us to provide better customer service to our students, our staff, and our faculty.
So, and I think you've done a great job working with those departments to bring them to the table, to collaborate, to work together to solve problems. And that's a reflection of how successful Omega has been with their departments and the functions that they do. And overall, it makes CSU so much better and gives us that competitive advantage.
Yeah, it hasn't been easy. I'm sure you can interview other people will tell you that those design meetings, that collaboration, it's a difficult process. It really is. But I think they would also all tell you that regardless of how difficult it was, that the results that it's brought their departments has been worth the effort that they put in as well as us. So I hope so anyway.
As you talked about the other departments collaborating with Omega, obviously there's a support network under Omega, and it's not just the software development team. You've got the network team and you've got technical support.
Yeah, when anything really goes wrong with Omega, the first people that hear about it are the help desk. We work very close with them, one, to make sure that we understand what feedback they're getting, and two, that we don't make mistakes that cause them to stay up all night answering phone calls. And they do a wonderful job. And the network support team, I mean, the servers that Omega and the portals run on, I mean, the network support team keeps those. So when those go down in the middle of the night, they don't call the developers, they call the network operations people to make sure that stuff is up and running. So those are the real people that do the really hard work, because when we make mistakes, those are the people that pay for it first. So we have a tradition in IT, whenever we make a mistake, regardless of who it is, when someone makes a mistake and it causes problems, they bring the donuts in the next morning. So every once in a while you come down to IT and see donuts sitting out just randomly, somebody made a mistake.
Tell me where we're going with Omega and the technology at CSU. Where do you think we're going to be in 10 years?
We've been doing a lot with our portals and mobile technology. I think only the ability to use mobile platforms for our students will eventually make its way to our faculty and staff. The thing we've been working on this year, and hopefully for the next 2 years, is focusing on Blackboard and our Blackboard user interface, and actually focusing on things for our student. And then getting that information back to advisors and faculty, and doing more automation and integration of the system. So it's a holistic system and not stovepipe systems is where we need to keep going.
Well, thank you, Scott, for everything that you and your team have done. Omega has done a great job at CSU. The features and functionality that you've added gives us the competitive advantage and the operations and efficiencies that make CSU what it is today.
Well, I just would like to go on the record one more time and say a lot of those features and functions that we have are the ideas from the department heads that come out of the needs in their departments, not necessarily the ones that we come up with. So they really do deserve a lot of credit for that. So
absolutely.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for hiring me.
You're welcome. Bethany, so you've been here with CSU for how many years now?
13 years.
13 years. So you were here when we were using Alpha, yes, and that transition period when we went to Omega. So I'd like to hear about those times and you know, how did you use the Alpha, and then when we transitioned over to Omega, what was that like?
So it is very nice to not have to type everything into Alpha, because when I was hired here, that was my job. I typed every application that came in, every evaluation that the evaluations team did at that time, I typed in. So I basically did data entry all day, which was great, but I'm so excited to have something that is automated and pushes that information into the system. It's also wonderful not to have to exit Alpha once a day.
So talk about how you use Omega today with your department and division.
I think the biggest feature that we use in Omega today in academic advising and student support is our call list functions. So we no longer have a paper call list that you're pulling and crossing off who you've called that day. So that is extremely efficient and effective, and we can determine who we need to call the next day without pulling that list manually. In advising, the degree advisement plan is an excellent tool for us. That plan actually readjusts as students decide that they're not going to take a course or go half-time, which makes it a lot easier on us, because in the past, we actually created PDFs and loaded them into Omega and then sent them to the student manually. We can all do that basically with the click of a button now. So it is wonderful to have that centralized resource as we're advising and supporting students.
Well, thank you for taking the time today to share those stories, and thank you to you and your team for what you do for CSU.
Well, thank you, Ken. I appreciate the time.
Thank you. Ed, many years ago, when I first talked to you about coming to CSU, I wanted to start a business intelligence department for all this information that we had throughout the university, to take the data to create information that was usable by our executives and our leadership teams to make decisions, and then also to forecast where we're going for tomorrow so we could plan ahead. And you've been very successful in building this piece of Omega, and I wanted for you to to tell us about that.
So originally when I came on board, Omega had like probably 100 reports, and today we're probably up in the thousands of reports. So it's the foundation of what we use, and we've taken that and we've gone and used the basis of the students, and we built in things such as scorecards, retention scores for students. We've added a lot of analytics to it, and so we can very quickly find out what's going on in the industry, what's going on in the institution, and compare those things and see where we've been and where we should be going. We've also done forecasting as well, which is a lot of predictive analysis and some basis for what we do in the institution.
So would you have imagined to be where we are today? I know our forecasts for the last couple of years have been off by like 1%, right?
Right.
So they're very accurate, and I think you've done a great job doing that, but did you expect that to happen?
No. So I knew you had a vision, and one of my challenges back then was to keep up with you, right? And we created reporting servers. So we now have servers that house a lot of data that the end users don't necessarily input, but we use the end result of that. So going from where we were to where I think I know where you're going later has always been the challenge. Right. And again, Omega has been the cornerstone for all of that.
As you know, I'm always thinking one step ahead, and I'm always thinking where we can go tomorrow. And I appreciate the work that you and your team have put in to make that a reality, and to build the systems and things that you have for the reporting infrastructure and the data analytics that we're using now. So thank you to you and your team.
Sure. Well, thank you again. It is my team, by the way. They're the nuts and bolts that pull it together, and we try to keep up with your vision.
Thank you. Hi, I'm here with Rachel, and I wanted to ask you, you've been with us for a long time now, and you were part of the transition from using Alpha, and now we're using Omega. Tell me about, your experience during the time of transition.
Sure. So I have been here for 13 years and got really comfortable using Alpha and accepted that was the fate for the Office of the Registrar and learned to work with it. Until the industry started talking about the Registrar's Office going paperless.
Now, when you talk about paperless, that's taking all the documents, and a lot of the data we have today is actually electronic. It's not even a document. But the document management system that we had back then, you could scan things in, but Alpha didn't have that.
They were separate, which made it very difficult for staff, especially in my office, who our role is to maintain the student record, and therefore created a delay in responding to our students. And so we are very thankful today that all the documents are housed within the student information system and available at the click of a button.
Now, in the old days, you remember the folders?
I do remember the folders.
We used to have folders that would come around the departments.
Absolutely. It was trying to find where the folder was. We had to check it out just because others were using the folder. Today, my office actually opens official transcripts and verifies that it is an accurate document, stamps it, images it right into the student information system, and then turns around and puts it right into the trash bin. So that is how sophisticated and robust our system has become for us, and has definitely made information available and accessible. And that's important if our goal is to serve our students timely and efficiently.
Well, Rachel, thank you for today. Thank you for what you and your department do for CSU.
Absolutely.
And we have a bright future with Omega and the university.
I look forward to its growth.
Thank you. So, what would you like to talk about? I could talk about
a raise, maybe. Oh, was that not? This is not what we're doing.
So, Aaron, in 2008, we launched Omega and our student information system. But at the same time, that same year, we started using financial aid funding. So we launched Title IV for our students. And one of the reasons why we built Omega was to handle the new features that was required to handle financial aid. So you were involved in that. So tell us about that transition and experience during in 2008 with Omega and financial aid and the whole thing.
Sure. Well, I mean, like, Alpha was a system that we originally started with, and it was already getting to a point where it couldn't handle much more, and it was always constantly exit Alpha so we can rebuild indexes. Well, we knew that once we got Title IV, which we started dispersing aid in September of 08, that our student population was probably going to grow, and over the years that has grown significantly, and a lot of that's due to financial aid. I'd say the IT team did a great job of customizing it over the years. It was great that it was a system that was built in-house because we were able to quickly react and make sure that we are doing what we had to do to meet those regulations.
Well, you and I spent a lot of time working on the transmission of data back and forth to Global FAS, which is who we outsourced our financial aid with at the time, and just getting the right data to them and making sure that it all went through and cleared. It was quite the process at the time.
Yes, it was a lot of hours, a lot of legwork, many long days. I mean, it was no 8 to 5. It was probably more like 8 that night, or maybe 12 that night or something, because I mean, things seemed like it was just evolving so fast, and that's what we do though. I mean, we're all about change, and we had to embrace change. We had no option but to embrace change, and you led that very well.
Well, you did a great job too with financial aid.
Well, thank you. Well, it wasn't just me. I had a big team of people out there working, helping support that.
And today, financial aid, the systems that we use, now we use campus management, which is integrated with Omega. You can see the financial aid options right on the student tab, which a lot of schools don't have. So we're really taking it even further than that time, where now the data is more available to everyone, the information. And it's even available to the students in the student portal. So it really has come a long way. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but Aaron and I shared an office when I first began at CSU. And so Aaron had direct access to IT for a while. And
it was nice. It was just like, I didn't have to pick up. I was like, Ken, let me scratch your back while I talk to you about something.
But anyway, Aaron, you have been a big part of CSU, and I want to say thank you for everything you've done and all the teams that you've worked with. And it's been a great 10 years with Omega and the evolution of financial aid and everything that we have today.
It's like watching two little kids grow up together. But you know, proud of you, Ken. You've done well. Good luck in your tenure as president. I know you'll lead us in the right direction.
Thank you. We'll talk about that raise.
All right, man. Appreciate it. It's like to hear.
So Tara, we are celebrating Omega with our 10-year anniversary from launching it. And I wanted to talk to you about our history of Omega, and even go back before Omega when I first came to CSU. And I recall in the early days, one of the first things I did was to automate grade posting, and that's something that you did. So do you remember that?
Oh yeah, definitely. We early on, when we were using Alpha for our student records, there was so much of it was manual, so manual, and time consuming, and we'd get a report from that came from Blackboard with the grades that needed to be posted, and we'd have to manually go into each student record and post each assignment grade, and then when they completed a course, we'd actually go through the process of printing a grade report, mailing out a grade report. So yeah, it was definitely different than it is today.
Yeah, and I remember you had came to me and you're like, I have 100 grades to post today, and this is getting too much to do. I can't get to all these grades. Mm-hmm. And so I went in, and one of the first programs I wrote was the grade posting system. And today we have probably 10,000 grades that are posted in one day. And could you imagine that many people having to post grades?
Yeah, if we had to do that today, no. The progress we've made with Omega and really just taken our student experience to the next level has really been remarkable to be a part of and witness over the years. So it's really something.
Well, when we transitioned from Alpha to Omega, do you remember the day we went live?
Yeah.
How it was not exactly the perfect day, but
yeah, it was one of those things that we knew it needed to happen, so it just happened. And we still had to service students. I think we had 10,000 students at the time.
So we really have come a long way, and I mean you've seen what it does today. Mm-hmm. And any remarks on that? Just where we are today?
10 years ago, I would not have believed we were where we were at, with 30,000 students, to come from where we were and all the experiences that we had, and really we just created it from the ground up, and to be a part of that.
So it's kind of like CSU's way.
Yeah.
We just build it and we keep moving forward.
Yeah, and we find something that needs to be done better and do what we need to do to make it better. And and students are always at the heart of it. If we can service our students better, get them the information that they need quicker and more efficiently, then we're going to do it. And so yeah, it's the CSU way.
All right. Well, thank you for all the work that you put in early on and helping us build Omega, and your commitment to CSU over all these years.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Tina, tell me, a lot of people hear about Alpha, but they really don't, have a lot of, they haven't used it, they don't really know what it is. They know it was the predecessor to Omega. You were in Alpha a lot, and you worked directly with Robert and using it, and you built things in it. So tell me about the time during that stage of CSU where you worked in Alpha.
So it was obviously a long time ago. It was nowhere near as expanded as what Omega is now, but it was very basic. Writing reports was very difficult. They were pretty much printed reports more than live reports. We didn't even have live reports. They were very difficult to write. In fact, most of the time Robert would ask for a report, I would just copy another report and then just modify it for whatever I needed. But the funniest thing that used to happen back then, and the biggest thing that Omega does that we couldn't do before, was the indexes. We'd have to re-index at least once a day, sometimes more than that.
Yes, I can remember re-indexing Alpha all the time, sometimes 3-4 times a day. And sometimes it would just be the student database. I'd get lucky and just have to ask people to get out of just the student database or prospect, but if something happened where they tied together, I had to make everybody get out of all of it. And I remember one time I actually had to call Alpha 5's tech support. Never had to do it before, but it was just not meant to be that big, and we just kept adding and adding and adding. And when I told the tech support guy what it was doing for us, he couldn't believe it. He was so amazed. He said, "I can't believe you've been able to get this database to do that." And I was afraid they were going to steal Robert after that.
Can you do that one time for me?
Everyone, please exit Alpha 5. Please exit Alpha.